Hey guys, welcome to the new webinar that we are going to co-host today with Leanne Chescoe, EMEA Marketing Director at Demandbase. And after having a successful keynote in London a few weeks ago, we wanted to elaborate more and share with you guys practical examples of sales and marketing's collaborative journey to revenue acceleration. It's almost end of 2023, and a lot of B2B companies plan new motions, new activities for the next year. And we believe it's essential to share with you a few practical ideas how to make sure that both marketing and sales teams work together, share with you practical examples from Fullfunnel, from our clients, and from Demandbase, something that you can easily implement at your organization. That being said, first question to you guys: where you all joining us from? Type in the chat where you're joining us from. And I'm again hosting this webinar from sunny Spain. Where you are, Leanne, sitting?
I'm in the UK. Not sunny.
Yeah, Adam. Let's see where our attendees: Marcos, Germany; Andras, Hungary; Doris, Split; Damira, United Emirates; Macedonia; Assume, Stockholm; Köln; Arun, Mladen, Split; Cool; Monica, Portland; Sammy, Hampshire; Michelle, UK; Nottingham. It's really interesting. Most people are from UK today. Sveta, Austin, Prague. Cool. Good to see you guys. As always, you're very welcome to ask questions. That being said, just one ask from myself. There is a section called Q&A, so please post your questions in that section so we won't lose your questions in the chat. I believe there would be a lot of them, and we'll make sure to cover all of your questions. Okay, and before we'll kick off our webinar, let me run a quick poll. I want to ask you guys, how would you evaluate current collaboration between marketing and sales? Poor, we work in silos. So we do some joint activities, but it could be done much better. Great, we operate as one revenue team. So would love to get some thoughts from you. And who is the one person who said great? I would love to applaud guys. I'm so happy to see that at least one team is nailing it down and driving revenue. But I mean,
that's great to see that, and I'd love to and share some things that are working for you in the chat. That would be great to hear. But I think, as we can see, it's not the case for many organizations, hence why a lot of you are joining us today and why we decided to speak on this topic. So hopefully you'll learn a lot from what we're going to share in the next hour.
Yeah, exactly. And as we can see, almost 80% not that much satisfied, right, with the collaboration, and hope that today's webinar will inspire you. So that being said, let's move to our agenda. And I would love to start it with basic explanation of how marketing and sales teams usually work together. And I always love to answer that question by sharing two movies. One, do you know, guys, that movie? Type in the chat. I believe lots of you have seen this fantastic movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And this is all about how sales work, right? They basically do a lot of Wolf of Wall Street. That's correct. So they do a lot of outbound cold calling, right? Cold emails, cold messaging, trying to drive pipeline and revenue. At the same time, marketing in most organizations, unfortunately, marketing doesn't have a strategic role and often is being considered as a passive function or arts and crafts department or an extension to lead generation department, right? And in the last case, especially in B2B organizations, marketers are usually running tactics that don't really work, but because they somehow need to justify their existence, they need to report on leads, right? They running a lot of activities that we call nowadays gated content and sending MQLs to sales for further outreach, right? And Leanne also made a beautiful diagram to explain this.
And I love this analogy, and who doesn't love a cocktail analogy, right? So, and I think that's been driven by us as marketers, really, and I'm a career-long B2B marketer, really following those models. I mean, I remember when I started out in my career following what was Serious Decisions, it's now Forrester, following their waterfall model, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that and perhaps have followed that before. But really what that kind of model followed was this margarita glass that you're seeing on the left-hand side, where it's filling the funnel with as many leads. And we were so like lead driven, and it was all like volume and numbers and quite frankly quantity over quantity. Now we're shifting into this champagne model, where it's more, targeted and better quality leads that we're following, filling the pipeline with. So we're kind of less focused on quantity, it's really quality. It's actually filling your pipeline with accounts and leads that your sales team can close. And we'll talk more about kind of how an account-based approach can definitely kind of help with this. But this is what we're seeing now, this kind of new funnel, this champagne glass funnel, where it's actually filling that pipeline with deals that your sales team can close, better quality, with higher average order values as well. So we're definitely seeing that shift, which is great to see.
And if I'll summarize everything, right, how marketing and sales work together nowadays in the majority of companies, right? Sales, outbound, cold calling, cold emails, cold messaging, marketing, inbound, ads, social content, press releases, corporate blogs, maybe some corporate newsletters, some field events or online events. But usually these are the programs that are silent. There is no synchronization, there is no joint planning, there are no joint playbooks how to leverage these activities and how to match, next call to action, a next action with activating a specific account to these programs, right? And in the reality, companies that we have seen that are really succeeding, right? They have aligned marketing and sales teams, and we break down this alignment into 4 categories. The first one is that they are aligned on the goals, revenue, target accounts, engagement that we track to identify engaged accounts. Next, playbooks, right? They have joint playbooks where marketing wear a specific role, sales wear a specific role, timeline of these playbooks, responsibilities, leading indicators, tasks in that playbook, and regular pipeline review where both teams share the statuses, interactions with target accounts, and do joint planning what to do next. Go-to-market strategy, obviously this is fundamental. Teams should have alignment on ideal customer profile, on different buyer journey scenarios and how to address these journeys, right? Value proposition or marketing message, account development. So what we can do to attract attention of target accounts, generate demand, capture that demand, what we are going to, how can we activate the buying committee members, right, and make sure that they are interested in our product, and the further development, how we can make sure that target accounts, when they become customers, get value from our product, and we minimize time to value, and how can we expand the business with these clients. And stack, right? Quite often stack is also silent, right? Different teams use different software, have no idea about different, let's say, touch points that could be tracked through different platforms. And the point is that the teams should have this alignment on where do they capture intent data and how this data should be qualified and sourced further, what should be the next actions, where do we store information about all interactions with target accounts, how can we enrich account and understand better their needs and goals, right? And CRM, which is usually a central point of all interactions, right? But quite often teams face problems there. So that being said, we want to present you practical examples. I think that's when it comes to theory, that's enough. So let's discuss these two levels of marketing and sales alignment. So the first one is fundamental go-to-market alignment. This is essential, right? And when it comes to go-to-market alignment, there are a few things that teams should be really aligned on. Focus segments, right? What segments thrive as most revenue? And when it comes to focus segments, there should be a joint understanding of historical growth, right? Where this growth is coming from, what markets, what verticals generate this growth, right? What is different ACV? What is ACV that is we have in different segments? How many successful use cases or case studies we have? What is the share of specific segment? And obviously, that all should come with additional criteria like profitability of a specific segment, level of competition, growth or stagnation of that segment, trends, etc. Maybe your product adoption, maybe how conservative is that segment. There are a bunch of things that teams need to consider, but this should be a joint decision. Okay, these are the verticals which we believe can generate the highest potential revenue for our company. Why I'm talking about this? Because segments is the first step in your go-to-market strategy. And the motion for at least this is what we have heard from peers in 2023, doing more with less, right? And that's the point. So if you want to focus, you need to understand what segments you should focus on. And where I'm going with this, the second point is that when you define a specific segment, right, then you have a separate ICP, you have a separate buyer journey scenarios, you might have different channels that you can use, and you might have completely different programs, right? Not all segments were created equal. And even if on the, let's say, on a high level, you assume, okay, these segments buy our product for this and that reason, in reality, they buy differently, they use different channels, there are different buyers involved, etc. So that's the first thing. Next one is ideal customer profile. And when it comes to ICP, right, a lot of companies stop at basic firmographics criteria saying, hey, we want to sell to major, United States banks, and that's it. Or we want to sell to all startups that raised 5 million and more in, in Series A or whatever, just to give you a broad idea. Another way I have seen, which is kind of a huge problem for companies when they accumulate the data from all the customers and try to create a universal ICP, right? And then they start challenging themselves. Yeah, but we have customers in healthcare, in cybersecurity, in retail, in hospitality, so, and they accumulate and they merge the data from small customers, medium-sized customers, highest revenue customers, and end up with a very broad definition of their ICP, which doesn't help, obviously, to have a good go-to-market motion. So when it comes to ICP, teams need to have 5 pillars. The first one is firmographics and technographics, which is quite obvious for most of the organizations. Next is tier segmentation, right? Because companies belong to a specific vertical, it doesn't mean that they all were created equal, right? If one company generates 20, 50 times more revenue than other companies? Should it be treated the same way, right? This is basically the essence of account-based marketing. Obviously, no. Hence, you need to define these different tiers, right, of these customers. And the way how you can do it is, again, looking at your historical growth and extracting top customers in a specific segment that you want to focus on, structuring them by ACV, by LTV, by revenue, whatever you prefer, right? And then analyzing the commonalities of these customers. And that leads us to the next step, account qualification and disqualification criteria. What makes account a good fit, right? What are the commonalities of these companies? And the most important disqualification criteria, even if account fits your firmographics and technographics, right? So on the paper, the account looks really good. Are there any other signs that tell us that this company will never buy from us? And how you can define this disqualification criteria is, again, analyzing top lost deals and seeing the commonalities between the lost deals, right? And understanding customers that are actually not going to buy from you. Why we are doing this? Because that way we can really nail down our ideal customer profile and have a better targeting, better qualification as one revenue team. Next, ultimately, we are not selling to companies, we are selling to people, right? So we need to define the buying committee. We need to understand who might be our champions, who might bring our solution and present it internally, who are the decision makers, who are the champions, people who won't negotiate with us, right? But they can influence the deal. And in our case, and Demandbase as well, facing with this, right? We are selling to marketers, to marketing department, but sales, VP of sales, CROs, they are influencers, right? They might, when the platform or we as a vendor would be presented in-house, they might tell their opinion if it makes sense, right, to purchase or bring vendor in-house or no. And finally, blockers, who are not people who are not interested in bringing you in-house, right? So these are the most essential pillars that you need to have when it comes to your ideal customer profile. Next point, buyer journey scenarios and activities to influence it, right? I mentioned a couple of times already that you need to run customer research. Ideally, if you do one-on-one calls with your customers, if that's not an option, you can do it through surveys or through social conversations. But the point is to understand typical journeys, right? What might trigger a specific journey? What might trigger your buyer persona to start looking for a solution like yours, right? And then mapping out the steps that these people might take. Obviously, I mean, we presented here in a linear way. All of us understand that buying journey is not linear, right? But to structure it efficiently, it makes sense to try to visualize it that way, right? From what triggers that journey, and then we can discuss a few questions, right? When we define these typical scenarios, how can we attract an attention of our buyer, right? How can we trigger that journey? What kind of content? Maybe like today's webinar, right? So you're listening to this webinar, you're not considering to buy, or you were not considering to buy Demandbase or partner with Fullfunnel, right? But after this webinar, it triggered your journey, so you started to learn more about the solution. Just sharing it as an example, right? So what actions can trigger the journey so your target buyers might start considering that solution? How can we identify that trigger, right? What solutions, what platforms can help us to identify that trigger, right? And what should be our next actions as a revenue team? What sales people should do, what marketing people should do. And in most cases, if use this webinar as an example, right? What most teams do after the webinar, they send all the signups to sales, and what sales do, sending, hey, you attended this, smart webinar by Fullfunnel and Demandbase. Would you like to buy our product? Let's book a demo, right? And it's basically destroys reputation, it annoys people, and it frustrates everybody. And the worst thing that people won't be willing to attend further events. So it's kind of playing against the organization, right? And the right and we'll be going to discuss it a little bit later, there should be completely different playbooks, right? So that's the point. We need to discuss these questions, and when we have this holistic overview of the journey, then nobody would question why we do this, or why should we do a specific activity. When we have this visual overview of different scenarios, then the programs would make sense, and obviously there should be a joint planning by both teams, right? Next, value proposition, the message that we are sharing with our target market, right? We should have an alignment. We can't, the worst thing that we can do if marketing uses one collateral, right, provides one message in the content, ads, social profiles, landing pages, whatever, and sales uses completely different collateral. There should be a clear alignment between two functions. Next one is the revenue report, because ultimately both teams should be evaluated. I mean, the performance of both teams should be evaluated by the revenue and sales pipeline velocity, right? Not all activities can be directly attributed to revenue, but it doesn't mean that these activities, these programs are not important or they are not sourced in the pipeline. And the point is that we need to have one holistic revenue report. And I know in a lot of organizations, companies measure marketing sourced revenue, marketing influenced revenue, just to justify marketing activities. But in a reality, if you look at it from the business perspective, all we care is revenue, and it should be all bound revenue. All teams should source it. It doesn't matter, what exact or who exactly sourced it. The key point is growth, and that's literally it. But what I highly recommend is structuring that report into three categories, right? You have net new revenue, you have renewed revenue, and you have expansion revenue. In that case, you have a holistic overview, and then you can always justify why we invested that much money, let's say, in that event for existing customers, right? And in that case, you can always present these insights to stakeholders. Now, one of the really interesting things that I believe is a huge challenge for a lot of organizations, there is no clear agreement on definitions and statuses. What are the pipeline stages we have, right? And why we have the stages? Next, who do we call a lead? Who do we call MQL? Who do we call SQL? Who do we call sales qualified opportunity? A lot of companies leverage these, definitions, but in reality, when you ask one marketer, second marketer, and then you switch to sales and ask, you will never get the same opinion. You'll never get the same reply. And that's a huge problem, because if there is no clear alignment on these definitions and statuses, right, then all the processes would be doomed, just because people would be focusing on wrong activities, on wrong metrics, right? And quite often in most companies, there is no definition of engagement threshold. What does it mean to call a specific account engaged? What level of engagement that account should demonstrate, right? Because this is essential. This is how we can identify the best accounts that should be sourced to account-based marketing teams. And I know Leanne has a lot of examples that they use at Demandbase.
Yeah, so this is kind of really sharing how we apply this to our own kind of strategy at Demandbase. So this is how we think about and define our accounts. So we've got our total addressable kind of market, and that's anybody that could be a good fit for one of our solutions, right? So that they have to be a B2B company, a certain revenue range. And then from there, we then whittle that down to our ideal customer profile. So it's accounts with those additional characteristics that we look at. So B2B, a certain annual revenue, but they also have to have a certain marketing and sales technologies to indicate that they're a good fit for one of our products. They're in certain industries. So back to Andrei's point, when he was looking at kind of ICP in the top industries, when we're thinking about ideal customer profile and specifically target accounts, those target accounts should be made up of, the majority of those industries that are strong fit in your ICP should make up the majority of your target accounts, for example. And then from there, we select our target account list, which we call our DB TAO. So we found that's our own internal name of branding a target account list. It's another step that can help in that alignment and getting that buy-in and just changing that terminology internally of how you talk about your target account list, giving it a name and branding it. And that those accounts are actually handpicked by our sales team. So we'll go through every year and review what our ICP criteria looks like. So what do our current customers look like? What about the opportunities in pipeline? And our marketing operations team and sales ops teams are doing that analysis together. They then put all of that into one kind of place, and we can see all of the account scores that make up, accounts that are a good fit for Demandbase, essentially. And then from there, we would share that with sales and say, these are accounts that should be considered for target account list selection. And then they'll make their selection. So their top tier accounts are their tier 1s and tier 2s, and they'll get special marketing kind of budget and spend. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about entitlements. Again, another element to kind of bring into your strategy to help with that sales and marketing alignment. Another key thing that we've done that's been really helpful, and it goes back to Andrei's points around segments, is actually having specific fields built out in our Salesforce instance, in our CRM instance. So we can easily identify and segment, is that a target account? Again, persona is another field that we look at. So is this the right persona? Is it a target account? What industry are they in? So it now enables us to, and analyze the data across our pipeline. Do we have our pipeline mix? Is that looking good? Is that made up of enough target accounts in pipeline? But then when it comes to our campaign strategy, whether that's ad campaigns or email or sharing that with sales, we can easily segment those account lists into the right different kind of segments based on industry, based on if they're a target account or not, based on who the persona is. So our account tiers more specifically, so this kind of tiering structure that we've introduced, again, it really helps with account prioritization and how we segment our accounts for campaigns for specific events. So we know that, if an account that's outside of our TAM or ICP, that's classified as not a target. So we know that our sales team are not going to focus too much time and effort in following up those accounts. So for a lot of these accounts that are not a target, they might get more of like an automated follow-up if we deem that they're not a good fit, versus accounts that are tier 5. So, okay, they're part of our they fit into our total addressable market, but they're not in our ICP. So we need some coverage across those accounts and some sales coverage. But again, we don't want to spend too much time. Where our sales team are focused and where we want to see the majority of our pipeline opportunities coming from, where we allocate the majority of our marketing budget, is in these top 4 tier accounts as well. So when we're looking at, again, pipeline, I want to see most of my pipeline mix made up of accounts that are in tiers 1 to 4. When I'm running events, I want to see registrations from accounts that are in those tiers. We'll have special offers that we run to these accounts. The event that we had a couple of weeks ago that Andrei referenced at the beginning of the session, we only had meeting requests that went to customers or accounts that were in tiers 1 to 4. Anybody that registered that wasn't in one of those tiers didn't get one of those meeting request invites. So we definitely want to be doing or prioritizing and giving more of this white glove treatment to those accounts.
So let's move to the next point, and basically what should be happen next, right? Is the you need to create a holistic overview of all intent and engagement data that makes sense to your organization, to your revenue team first, right? You need to involve to salespeople, right? Your sales teams, and ask, okay, what kind of engagement do you think is meaningful? What kind of intent data do you think is meaningful, right? What kind of insights from account research would you like to see? And that, after that discussion, next point is mapping out the sources, right, where we can get this information from, like Demandbase, ZoomInfo, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, there are a lot of platforms, right, that we can leverage. It doesn't really matter. The key point is, okay, what is the source? What is the platform that provides this source? Next, who tracks, qualifies, segments, and this data, right? And does account research if we didn't do account research before. And tracking, how often, right, this person who is responsible for a specific source should be tracking this data and providing this information, or storing this information and sharing with the revenue team. A lot of companies, and I know, so for example, even I chatted with a few companies that are using demand-based alternatives, right? And what people were sharing, they said, okay, marketers track intent for their own usage. Then different SDRs time to time log in and see if there was any engagement in their area. But ultimately, if you look at this process from the company's organization, there is no real process, right? So people sporadically use that platform and then do how one of our customers called it, do random acts of marketing and sales to see what will work. So that's actually, unfortunately, the biggest problem. And last one, that when it comes to go-to-market alignment, point that Leanne already mentioned is account intelligence, which basically means holistic overview of all the data and all interactions with the target accounts that our company has, right? And it includes ICP data, right? Firmographics, technographics, buying committee, etc., right? How that account fits our qualification criteria. Next, different triggers, how this account appeared in our CRM, right? And why. Next, we use this scoring, but it's not scoring that you can get from Marketo. You just track, email clicks and opens. Account scoring is basically accumulation of all interactions with that account and what tier that account fits, right? If there is any clear need in our product, and is there any evidence that this company might have a need? So, for example, they raised money or they hired a new VP of marketing and they officially, announced that they want to launch account-based marketing motion, whatever, right? So we need to save in one place all this information so everybody in your organization can see all the interactions, right? The worst thing that you can deal with when, let's say, somebody, and I'm again sharing an example that I have heard from account executive of one of our clients. She told, okay, I log in to Salesforce, and then I see a bunch of contacts that were assigned to me, and I have no idea why they appeared in our CRM, why these contacts were assigned to me, what kind of interactions we had with these contacts, and what am I supposed to do next? Should I just call and say, hey, you were assigned to me, so let's have a demo? Or what? That's the worst thing, right? You need to have this holistic overview, and you need to kind of have somebody who will make sure that you don't have duplicates in your database, that all the data is accurate and up to date, right? And that everybody in the organization can use it.
Yeah, and this is really just kind of reinforcing what you said there, Andrei. It's really about embracing the data, right? Creating that single view of all of your account data and having that in one kind of place as well. So I think, as you said, you've got kind of different teams that are working on different datas. It creates these huge silos. They have different strategies. And from the customer perspective or a prospective customer perspective, they're getting not a great experience with your brand if they're getting all these kind of mixed messages and outreach and kind of, not one team is kind of talking to the other or sharing data and insights on that account as well. And I think it really starts with firstly building out that proper account data foundation, right? Without it, it's really hard to actually know and identify who are the accounts that are part of my ICP that are in market, showing those buying signals that are ready to engage right now. You're not able to then orchestrate those relevant account interactions across channels. You're not able to see where those accounts are in the buying cycle, how they're engaging with you, and ultimately not being able to align sales and marketing around that common view of the account. And then you're not able to measure success and tracking, how are my marketing programs that I'm running actually moving the needle. So I think that's really, really key to kind of have that data foundation in place. And I think one of the things that can help with that is being able to share that account intelligence. So you want to be able to activate your sales team and make sure that they're getting all of their great insights into the information that you have on their target accounts. So it could be, we know that they're showing intent for a competitor, for example. And again, this can work in a new business scenario, or if you're focused on, customer expansion and retention. It's great to know if a new business opportunity in a sales cycle is showing intent for a competitor. Similarly, it's great to know if a customer that's renewing in 3 months is showing intent for a competitor. And this is all of the insights that the account owner should have so that they can react accordingly and come up with that competitor displacement messaging. Perhaps you as in your marketing role wants to support that by activating a competitor displacement ad campaign, or some personalized landing pages that show where you're better than that particular competitor for deals in your pipeline. That's actually a playbook that I have live right now with one of my account reps, where she's seeing actually this particular competitor is in a lot of my deals. So we're doing that right now. We're running ad campaigns into those accounts with that competitor displacement messaging. And when they come to our website, they get to a customized landing page that has a video of that sales rep that's talking to those accounts. They're familiar with that person, and there's this whole kind of messaging in terms of why Demandbase is better than this other solution. So I think that's really kind of key to kind of put those plays in place as well. They can also see the engagement across that account, so not just from one individual, because one interaction from one individual doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to be engaged in a sales conversation. They're probably not ready. It's probably you want to wait until there's multiple people, or there's that multiple engagement from a number of stakeholders, when is the right time to kind of reach out. Also, what's really key to share and be able to get insight on is, are those companies visiting my website? What engagement are they looking at? What content are they engaging with? All of this different information about this account, and enriching that information that you get at the account level. So if there's any company news, if maybe they've got a new, somebody new that's joined their C-suite, or perhaps there's like a funding announcement from that company or an acquisition, something that is relevant for that salesperson to use, it's going to help them. You're injecting that account intelligence across all stages of the funnel. It just helps them to prioritize when to reach out, and they're going to reach out with messaging that's really relevant to where that account is in the buying cycle as well.
And before we'll start the new section, which is all about executional and operational alignment, I would love to ask you guys what areas of fundamental go-to-market alignment you can improve based on what we have shared with you. So you have multiple options to select. You don't need to select just one. Would love to see, what do you think you can improve in your organization? And in most cases, ICP wins.
Yeah.
And just really interesting. Yeah, ICP and buyer journey. So let's do this. Sources of intent and engagement plus ownership. It seems that's option number 3. But yeah, let's do the voting buyer journey is number one. Ideal customer profile and sources of intent and engagement plus ownership plus account intelligence. And yeah, in most cases, these are the lowest hanging fruits, and they are kind of aligned, because if you don't have a clear ICP, you won't be able to recreate buyer journey, right? And you won't be able to correctly map out the programs to influence it. And if you don't have this, you simply don't have an idea what kind of software do you need, right, to run these programs or to identify specific triggers or actions. And ultimately, when we run these programs, right, we need to have this holistic overview of everything. So cool. Glad to see that that presentation, that part was valuable, as it seems you got a lot of insights on the areas that you can focus on and improve. And that being said, let's move to the second part, operational and executional alignment, because theory is fine, right? We can be aligned on these go-to-market fundamentals, but ultimately, if we don't do joint execution, if we don't operate as a revenue team, then go-to-market fundamentals make no sense. It's like theory without practice equals zero, right? So let us share with you a few practical examples that you can leverage at your organization to move the needle to drive revenue. And the first one is the overview of marketing and sales executional alignment. In most cases, right, we always say, okay, there are marketing playbooks, there are sales playbooks, and there are shared playbooks, right? Obviously, sales people won't be running LinkedIn ads, for example, right? Or won't be, I don't know, like writing marketing newsletter. So that belongs to marketing playbook. In most cases, opening conversations and engaging with the buying committee belongs to the sales playbook, right? So that's why we do this split. But that being said, these operations should be aligned and should be holistic. When it comes to marketing playbooks, right, we can do a bunch of these demand generation activities, ads, in-depth guide for our blog, guest posting, micro events, webinars, partner webinars like this one, paid content distribution, whatever, right? And sales playbooks, I think we can skip it for now because all of you understand what sales playbooks are. But what is really interesting is the shared playbook. And when it comes to shared playbook, I believe that the core activities are thought leadership. I believe that both teams should be involved in that. Why? Because the truth is that nobody wants to hang out with SDRs. When people see that a new SDR reaches out and says, hey, you know, your profile attracted my attention, let's build that relationship, I wanted to connect with you or whatever, right? People understand that the next step, next action after accepting that connection request would be a sales pitch, right? So people don't like it. People don't want to hang out with yet another SDR. So our point with the thought leadership that we want to reposition our sales team to be trusted advisors in that space. And actually, Demandbase does this really well. For example, if you look at what Paul does, right, he posts a lot. And your ex-VP of marketing, John Miller, right, he is fantastic. Probably one of the best examples when it comes to the right thought leadership. So both teams are doing this because, and why I'm saying this is a joint playbook, because when we, let's say, Leanne from the marketing and marketing team, you know, focuses on the marketing buyers, right, on the champions and decision makers, while sales people address influencers and potential blockers, right? And that way you create a holistic content that nurtures both buying groups, which is essential. Personalized connection requests, thoughtful commenting when you add value to the conversation, right? Because that's the easiest way to proceed from engagement in the comments in the threads to one-on-one conversations with your target buyers, content co-creation, community building. So these are all shared playbooks. Next, engagement and intent triggers, right? all the engagement that is meaningful for you. Some of these pillars Leanne already mentioned, like website visits of your high intent pages, checking your, let's say, specific content hubs, product related guides, signing up for product related webinars, right? Engaging with your demand generation programs. All these activities might provide you these necessary insights. And then we have demand acceleration and capturing, which basically stands for how are we going to leverage these insights and proceed with generating opportunities with these engaged accounts. And we want to share with you a few practical examples. How does this work in real life?
Yeah, and I think it really starts with kind of taking that kind of guesswork out and being, having that ability to discover those in-market accounts ready to buy. So you've got all of your ICP defined, you've got perhaps you've got your target account list built out. How do you know if they're the right target accounts? Are there any others that you're missing on that list? How can you ensure that you are getting to those right accounts and you're surfacing those for your sales team? And that really starts with, how the B2B buyer journey has changed. It's more complex and anonymous. It's not this kind of linear journey. It's very much likened to like the flight of the bumblebee. It's kind of all over the place, as is kind of illustrated in this slide, where most of us can be starting to engage with our buyers is where they get to that form fill stage, that they've come to our website, they've completed a form, and they might have submitted a demo request. As you can see, this step is about 2/3 of the way down the buying cycle. By that point, they probably would have evaluated at least 2 or 3 of your competitors. They might be a fair way down the journey stage with those competitors. Maybe they've got to your website because they're just doing a price comparison at this stage. It's really about engaging with them when they're starting that initial research. So being able to get that, account intelligence to see what accounts are on my website, anonymously, so that you can set your strategy in the right way and start to engage with that buyer and that wider buying committee earlier on the buying journey, so that you're getting to them before your competitors. But I think a key to kind of doing this is by combining like strategy and technology. And I think you can't really do one without the other. This was supposed to be a build slide. It didn't quite kind of work out that way, but the technology kind of piece is where you kind of start, right? So you want to get that account intelligence on accounts that are on your target account list or a part of your ICP to help you build that target account list. And I want to understand, are those accounts visiting my website? Are they showing any sort of on-site engagement? Are they showing any intent from my products or services, or perhaps my competitors? How are those accounts engaging with my marketing programs and my content? Where are they in the buying journey stage, right? So you're kind of starting off and getting all of this information. From there, you can then start to set your strategy. It might be that you're targeting financial services, could be a key industry that you're targeting. You're not getting enough, web conversions from financial services accounts. You might think, right, I need to invest maybe in an ad campaign to financial services that's going to drive them to my website and get them to that conversion stage. Once you get that insight into like who those accounts are on your website that are looking at your content, are visiting anonymously, not getting to that form fill stage, you may find actually 80% of those are financial services. So I don't need to spend the money on an ad campaign. I need to do a better job of engaging those accounts once they're on my site. So actually my focus might be more around, developing those personalization experiences, so that when they come to your website, they're getting personalized messaging that's tailored to a financial services organization. Perhaps they're getting called out by company name. They might be served up with content that's really specific to that industry, or perhaps some case studies as well. That's going to help them convert at a much higher rate. And you're not then wasting your ad budget advertising to those accounts that are already on your site. So I think about getting that insight first. That then helps you set the strategy. You know where the focus is, you know where to prioritize, what actions to take and what channels to be able to utilize. And then you're using technology again to take that action. So you might see, oh, these accounts, they're not visiting my website, so I need to activate an ad campaign. You can take that action. It might be that they're engaging, they have a high engagement level. I want to orchestrate an action to send a direct mail to target accounts that fit a certain engagement criteria, for example. Or it could be accounts that are showing intent for a certain product. So an example might be customers of product A that are showing intent for product B. So you put them into an email sequence that's really relevant to that product. And then again, this kind of loop continues. So it's about having that technology and actually combining that strategy and technology together to make sure that you're spending your resources in the right areas. We talked a little bit about kind of how we select our target accounts. So I won't kind of cover this too much in the essence of time, but we're using a methodology of like account scoring to understand like those best fit accounts. We then hand those off to our sales team and they make that target account list selection. And then from that, they then tier their accounts. So we've got their target accounts and then they're going to select what's in their top tier, tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 accounts.
And I would love to basically finish the last part of that webinar with 6 steps to create a joint marketing and sales playbook, because this is the most essential, right? Saying where do we start? How do we start? How should we plan it accordingly? And what are the nitty-gritty details that we need to consider? So we'll navigate you through a few practical examples and through these steps, but this slide is basically a holistic overview of these steps, right? The first one is defining the program goals and objectives. Next one is defining the core pillars and actions, what actually we are going to do, right? Because coming to your sales team or to your stakeholders and saying, hey, let's do ABM, hey, let's do demand generation, but what does it mean, right? People don't understand it. People understand the specific set of actions. Next, define the responsibilities, but make sure that marketing is also actively involved into these operations. Marketing shouldn't be a passive function, right? That just, I don't know, like create creatives, create some content, and that's it. Marketing should be involved in that multi-threaded engagement, which I will share with you in next slides. Next, define positive signals or small wins. This is really essential because if your sales cycle is long, right, and you build a new motion, if you develop a new playbook, I mean, there is unfortunately no magic in this world, right? We can't just expect immediate revenue, a bunch of, your tier 1 target accounts coming to you and saying, yeah, I would love to buy your product. Just because we are going to launch ABM or any new motion, any new playbook, and we selected well the target accounts, doesn't mean that they are ready to buy right now. But there are some signals that tell us that this program works. And basically that leads us to this program enables us to generate opportunities in the nearest future. Next, what is really important is installing weekly review of our activities, of account interactions, and plan next steps, right? And match the next actions with the engagement triggers. So this is the essence. Let us share with you a few examples. So the first one, I often suggest this as the first step as an answer to the question where to start, right? Define the program and objectives by analyzing pipeline velocity. Pipeline velocity gives you a pretty good understanding of your revenue trajectory because it consists of a few metrics. First of all, how many sales qualified opportunities you generate. Next, what is your average contract value? Next, what is your win rate? And what is your sales cycle length, right? So based on your sales cycle length, this formula gives you an overview of what, let's say, revenue you can expect with these metrics in a timeline that is that equals your sales cycle length. And if you review holistically these metrics, you can start mapping out your programs properly. What if your winner? Because a lot of companies, probably I need to give you an explanation why to look at these metrics. A lot of companies, unfortunately, think that the only one way to grow their revenue is generating more sales qualified opportunities. But quite often, I mean, if your win rate is low, right? If your ACV, average contract value, is low, right? Then these are the problems, and you need to shift your attention from new sales qualified opportunities to how can we improve these metrics, right? How can we improve better accounts that are easier to win and we have a shorter sales cycle, right? What can we do to shorten the sales cycle? So these questions quite often lead to revenue growth, right? And to plan the appropriate programs. So start with that point. Next one is that you need to create a holistic overview. What exactly we are going to do? What would be the key activities, right? So this, for example, a representation of our ABM on LinkedIn framework, right? Where we schematically explain, okay, these are the top activities that we do to drive awareness and demand. And this is, let's say, high-level overview, right? You start from that point. Next, who are we going to target with these activities? Next, how can we identify engaged accounts, right? What metrics or what signals should we pay attention to? And next, what should be our next actions? How can we leverage these insights and basically generate opportunities? This is what we mean by demand acceleration and capturing. And I know Leanne prepared a few examples of the campaigns, so let us share this.
Yeah, I always like to kind of share, give the real life examples to like some of the great kind of practical advice and best practices and frameworks that Andrei is sharing. So this is an example, and this is of a one to few campaign that I ran earlier in the year. And this is how I think about, all the different kind of channels that I have at my disposal, what kind of budget I have for each of those. And this is how I like to plan out an ABM type campaign. So this is actually supporting one of my new business sales reps in the targeting B2B SaaS companies. So that makes up the majority of his target accounts. We were seeing most engagement come from that account, and we wanted to drive engagement and ultimately drive demos, meetings, and ultimately pipeline for him within this target account list. And so this is how we kind of set about our plan. So we looked at all the different channels that we can leverage, ones that we had programs already running in, budget that we had to get specifically to run this campaign. And we ran this over a 3-month period. So we had certain spend per account. It was slightly lower than what we typically would spend, but we had a high number of accounts, and it was really about driving, engagement to those accounts. So we were running to all of our software accounts with industry-specific messaging, and we ran that over a 3-month period. And the goal in that first month was very much like, we just want to get these accounts on site, right? Month 1, that is the goal. Month 2, we want to try and get them to engage more with our content. Month 3, it was like driving towards one of the offers that we were pushing in one example was a demo request. We had a specific landing page that we set up, and we are using our own technology. So we're using Demandbase to serve and run our ad campaigns. We're using Demandbase to run and set up a specific landing page for those accounts. We had an industry-specific landing page with messaging and case studies that was really tailored to that. And then we had some events kind of running in tandem where we're already, invested in these events. Let's try and get those accounts to this event in offering some free tickets or discounted tickets to try and maximize, our exposure to them at existing events. And then we actually put separate kind of budget into a dinner that we were running targeted at CMOs and marketing leaders that we invited these accounts to. So that was like a portion of the budget for these accounts to go to this dinner. We already had some webinar programs that were running with a customer that was in that industry. So we wanted to leverage those case studies where they were talking about, their ABM campaigns and sharing their ABM experience and journey. So we wanted to make sure that they were, attending those webinars. And then we had separate campaigns running through different channels. So we use Marketo for our email campaign. So we had a dedicated email campaign running to key personas within those accounts. We paired that with a LinkedIn lead gen and awareness campaign. And then we use outreach. So we had some outreach sequences specifically created that our SDR team could leverage to try and drive some, engagement with those accounts. And then we also had a smaller direct mail campaign. So we use direct mail as another channel. We use a tool called Sendoso. And our SDRs had a budget, quite a low budget. We just used a simple, I think it was an e-gift card, like a coffee card, to help them drive meetings and custom workshop signups as well. So this is how we kind of think about and plan out our campaigns. A one-to-many example is actually where we're trying to engage with a bigger number of our target accounts. And in this example, we're actually serving up a personalized website experience. So we want to slightly change and alter the messaging that these set of accounts see when they come to our website. So we did two things. We had a specific landing page that we were driving them to. So we had ads that were driving them to this landing page. And then we did a homepage takeover as well. So if those accounts didn't click through an ad, but they came to our website, they would automatically get that personalized homepage experience with messaging that is the same as if they went to this dedicated landing page. So we simplified the headline. We had a short explainer video. I'm a big fan of using videos to, engage on these dedicated landing pages. We had focused messaging around how we support certain business types. We wanted to simplify what it is that we do and really call out the benefits of our solution as well. This is something that's actually running right now to a wider set of our target accounts. And then a couple of other examples, one to few example, this was a re-engagement campaign. So again, this is looking at accounts that had a closed lost opportunity in the last 6 months, and they had a specific closed lost reason. We ran this, this was towards the beginning of last year when we went through a rebrand, and we had this whole new kind of demand-based platform to share with the world. And so we wanted to try and engage these accounts to say, actually, we've spoken to you before. We've been working on our sales since we last spoke, and this is our demand-based mascot, DB. We had some fun imagery that we used with DB lifting weights, and it kind of tied into this whole, we've been working on our sales message. So this is an example of what the display campaign looked like. So we wanted to target those specific groups of accounts with display ads to get them re-engaging with us. When they came to our website, they got that personalized homepage experience. So we greeted them by company name. And again, they got similar messaging that they saw in the ad. We also did an email campaign as well. They got that same message when they came to our website. And we paired that with a custom web chat experience as well, so that they were greeted by company name. We referenced the fact that, we have been in conversation with you before. We connected them with a rep that is familiar with their account. So it's just treating them differently to other accounts that, we haven't engaged with before. So we want to just serve them those different, experiences and try and get them re-engaging with us. And then final example is a one-to-one campaign. So I use a blend of ABM strategies as part of my ABM program. So this one-to-one campaign is this is limited to a certain number of accounts, because we've got a certain size team that can actually run these and resource for these and have the budget for this as well. So we limit the criteria of what we can deliver from a one-to-one perspective. But our one-to-one campaigns, we will build customized ads for that account and a personalized page. And this is where that sales and marketing alignment piece comes in to play, because I work really closely with the account teams and the account owners to understand what is the type of messaging that we should be serving to these accounts. Where are their key pain points? What's going to differentiate Demandbase and help us stand out? And what do they really care about? So we can then build that content for them. So we would put that in an ad creative and then on that landing page and have that just delivered to that, just built specifically for that level, for that account. And as you can see, I'm including video again, huge like video fan. And this is just a simple message from the account owner. It's like a 30-second video. I think we used Zoom to do this, so it was really, cost effective. And it's just a nice way of saying, hey, whoever the account is, we've created this custom content for you. Come check out this. I know this is really important for you. We've got, these are the customers that we work with that are in a similar space to you. So really simple, but these have been really effective in just driving that engagement and treating those accounts differently based on, the relationship that they have with us, based on where they are in the sales journey as well.
And what I love about these campaigns that Leanne just presented is that they have a very specific goal, right? And as you can see, they are very well structured, they are very well organized, and we want to share next essential points because you saw campaign overview, but again, there are nitty-gritty details that you need to consider. One of them is that you need to define these key program pillars and actions. Like in previous examples, you saw there was like you need, for example, re-engagement campaign. You need to define these counts that you spoke to in the last 6 months, right? And then you lost the deal because of competition, price, or whatever. Next, preparing specific message, specific landing pages, etc., right? And obviously, you need to plan it properly, and you need to capture these insights. And then when, let's say, account visits this page, what salespeople should do, right? So this all should be structured. And this leads me to the next point. Whenever you plan a playbook, you need to define the key program pillars and actions, right? So this one as an example to the ABM on LinkedIn framework that I was presenting to you, right? That playbook, the execution of that playbook consists of several, let's say, core pillars, like number of personalized connection requests, number of posts, number of meaningful comments, number of non-sales touches, right? And why it's essential? Because in that case, it becomes structured, right? It wouldn't be like a chaotic or random activity, but it's well planned, well structured, and everybody in the team knows what they should do, right? Then why we call this leading indicators? Because these are actions that are under our control, right? We can execute them. We are not blocked on anything aside from our time. And revenue opportunities, these are the consequences of these actions. So basically, we execute this to generate the future opportunities. Next, clearly define the responsibilities in that playbook, right? So if account visits, for example, your specific accounts landing page, right? What should happen next? Who should do what, right? Who should drive that traffic? Who should capture that data? And who should do next action? So for example, specific person in marketing would run a dedicated to account retargeting campaign, and account executive or SDR would be reaching out to buying committee members, right? You need to have a clear overview of the responsibilities in that playbook. Next one is ensure multi-threaded engagement. And I mentioned this a couple of times, marketing shouldn't be operating as a passive function, right? I believe that both teams should proactively engage with the buying committee members. Make sure that there is this split. I'm not saying that marketing should be necessarily doing the prospecting, but quite often you'll see if you are engaging with your peers or if you are engaging with specific buying committee group, quite often you'll see that these people would be asking you, hey, can you share with me more information about your product? Or let's say I shared your content, or I attended your event and I shared it with my, let's say, role that belongs to your decision maker, right? And they were asking more information about your product. Can you make an intro? Can you share more information? That's why we are doing this, because for us, it doesn't matter from who from the target account generates the opportunity. What matters is the opportunity itself, right? And that's why both teams should be involved. And I would just share a few examples of how that could be done, right? So for example, and this is a recent project that we finished with the client. So these are brilliant examples of how both marketing and sales work together. Sales joins the conversations and engage with the buying committee members of target accounts on social, adding, this is what we call thoughtful comments, comments that add value to the conversation. They mention in some target buyers in some relevant posts. marketing at the same time retargets these accounts with the relevant ads, right? With the message that is relevant to these target accounts, and marketing follow-ups in the communities where these people hang out, because not everybody hangs out on LinkedIn or on Twitter, right? Quite often people hang out in different communities, and that could be another channel that we can utilize. And what else is important is that we need to define leading indicators, right? Because again, it's in ideal world, we would generate opportunities and we can measure new motion by opportunities. But in reality, if we build something new, unfortunately, it's not realistic to set up, revenue expectations. But what we can set up is the leading indicators that we want to measure. And again, like I was sharing with you, core pillars, this is another example, right? How many engaged accounts did we have? How many calls we were able to, or maybe just, I'm not mentioning the discovering calls, I mean, how many conversations we were able to open with these target accounts, etc., etc. This is really essential to have a complete overview.
And I think the measurement part is really key as well. I think it's definitely a bit of a mindset shift to what you're used to measuring. And I think there's so many schools of thought around how the MQL is dead and going away, and it is really shifting your focus on actually metrics that are aligned more with the business and how you're reporting back as a marketer in terms of what's working and what isn't, and the type of things that you measure and how you report on that are really key. So I think those kind of shorter term metrics are going to be things like those engagement metrics. It's going to be those leading indicators that these accounts are going to turn into a pipeline opportunity. But before they do that, there's going to be, a certain time where we need to engage with that buying committee and get them to that kind of right point. So before you do that, you're going to be looking at things like, are those accounts, visiting my website? How long are they spending on my, how long are they spending on site? What kind of content are they looking at? How many people are engaging with my content? Are we getting the right people that are engaging with our content across all stages of the sales funnel? Are we getting the right accounts that are converting to pipeline? How much of that pipeline is made up of those right, target accounts as well? Do we have enough people within the right accounts engaging with us? So those are more of those kind of shorter term metrics. And then those longer term metrics are going to be looking overall at your business as, what is the health of our pipeline? How many target accounts do we have in pipeline versus non-target accounts? And actually, what does that split look like for when a target account is in pipeline? Are we seeing higher average order values? Are we closing those deals quicker? Are they moving through the funnel at a quicker pace as well versus a non-target account, which in theory they should do, because those non-target accounts might be ones that aren't a great fit for your business. It could be fitting a square peg in a round hole type scenario where you're trying to kind of make that solution work, and inevitably those types of customers, don't renew. It takes longer. The deal size is definitely kind of lower. So you're definitely going to be starting to look more at those metrics in terms of how those target accounts kind of outperform those ones that are non-target accounts.
And just a few last points, because I know we spent more than 1 hour, so we'll quickly navigate you through it. As I mentioned already, what is really essential to define positive signals, and you need to set up the expectations, right? When you build a new playbook and people who would be involved in that playbook, you need to agree with each other. What are the positive signals that tell us that this program works, right? And then it could be, engagement from target accounts, website visits, messages, high intent pages, visits, sign-ups for specific events, obviously discovery, calls booked, inbound requests, etc., right? All of these small wins help to keep the momentum and motivate team, right? And obviously team should share this, and one of the best ways to do it, obviously, share this in the in-house channel, at least in the channel for the pilot team. But next essential activity is a weekly review where both teams review together all the joint programs, share the successes, share the updates about the interactions with strategic tier 1 and tier 2 accounts, and planning together next actions. Okay, what we can do next with all the insights that we have collected this week, right? How can we help these accounts to move further? And this is how the joint planning happens. So I know that guys at Demandbase do ABM stand-up, so curious to hear more details about it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of these, and this is something that I share with our customers all the time. And I'm a huge advocate and would say to any of our clients, you know, if you can do something that's a similar format, try it, because it really does help with that alignment for both of those sales teams. So ABM stand-ups is the name that we give them at Demandbase, but essentially it's a monthly meeting between the ABM marketer and or the person that's running that particular ABM program, the sales rep, whether that's new business or existing, and then they're supporting SDR, and they can take a whole different kind of for each sales rep, it's really dependent on kind of what the need is as well. So for some, it might be, actually, I need my support is really about driving more of my accounts that are at top of funnel and getting them to, you know, book a demo or take a meeting with us, versus I've got these accounts that are in pipeline. I need your help in putting together an acceleration program. Or it could be, you know, these accounts, these customers are coming up to renew in the next 3 months. We want to make sure that they're using the product, that we're serving them more use cases, that we're showing them kind of more value and giving them more like ROI type content, and really helping to engage, making sure that they're not looking at any competitor solutions. And we can get all of that insight through Demandbase, and those meetings really vary and depend on like what the need is for that particular account owner. But it's something that, again, I highly advocate for, and they've really helped drive alignment across the teams.
And one of the last points that we want to share is that when you develop playbook, make sure that you match next actions with the engagement triggers. Not every activity means the buying intent, right? This webinar, again, as I mentioned, doesn't mean that we need to send the contacts. For example, I don't need to send it to anybody from my team to ask the person to follow up with you and try to book a call. And the same Demandbase won't be calling all of you and saying, hey, you attended or signed up for that webinar, let's have a demo. Make sure that all the playbooks are aligned with the buyer journey stage, right? So if the intent is slow, next step is helping that buyer moving further in their journey, right? So it could be progressive profiling, it could be suggesting them to follow you on join your community or join your newsletter, right? Could be about getting acquainted and understanding better their needs, and where at least understanding where they are in their journey, etc. Right? So make sure that playbook is aligned with the buyer journey stage.
Yeah. So and then that kind of translates into like the experiences that you're serving your customers and prospects, right? So you're making sure that you're aligning the experiences that you're pushing out to that account journey. So making sure that where possible, you're able to personalize experiences across all of the different stages of the sales cycle. So aligning those interactions with the buying journey. And we have our ad campaign structure set up very similarly to our buyer journey. So we have that segmented by account tier, but also where they are in that journey stage, because somebody that's at that top of funnel, we define it as qualified stage, is going to be interested and researching very different things that somebody that is at that MQA and opportunity level. So you want to make sure that you're treating those customers and prospects very differently, and the information and content that you're serving matches each of those different stages. So at that top of funnel, it's really going to be about that kind of thought leadership, and really kind of getting their kind of attention and bought in, and helping them to really start to trust your brand, right? And this is where we tend to not gate content as well. We tend to have that kind of ungated at that top of funnel. And then when they kind of move through the journey stage, we then start to change the amount that we're actually spending on advertising to those accounts. So we'll spend a higher amount advertising to accounts that are at a kind of MQA stage and further down the funnel versus ones that are at the top. And the type of content that we're serving is very different. It's going to be more thought leadership, education, case studies, analyst reports, anything that is indicating that they're in a purchase decision, and content that is going to support that as well.
And that being said, before we'll proceed to Q&A section, I want to run the last poll and ask again, you guys, we shared with you a couple of things how to improve executional and operational alignment. Please vote what areas you believe you can refine based on what we have just shared with you. So curious to see your feedback. And again, you can select multiple options, so feel free to vote. And it's really interesting that, again, two options, most voted options, are planning programs through joint analysis of revenue metrics and pipeline velocity, which means that, again, most teams never do this, right? They never look at these metrics, and they plan programs that are not really aligned with the revenue and are not impacting these revenue metrics. And the second one is improving existing playbooks to match them with the buyer journey, because the reality, unfortunately, is that a lot of companies develop transactional playbooks, right, that should immediately drive to opportunity, which unfortunately is not true, right? And then setting up leading indicators, adding multi-threaded engagement. So these are the most common things. But before we'll proceed to, so first of all, thanks a lot for voting and sharing these insights with us. Before we'll proceed to your questions, guys, can you please share with us in the chat, was it helpful, most valuable? Share with us your feedback. Feel free to type pluses, emojis, or whatever you prefer. It would be great to hear your feedback, and we'll cover the questions one by one. So the first one is, I work with a large global sales organization. They have multiple field reps and SDRs. How do playbooks like this scale? They're successful with small pockets of sales, but adoption is low. Would you like to cover it, Leanne?
Yeah, I think how do playbooks like this scale? So I think it is starting with those where you have those, like you say, small pockets of success with some salespeople. It's using those as your case study and really trying to like help get them to be your advocate to show where this has really worked as well. So I think it can be slower to scale it. It really depends on like the buy-in from the sales team. But I think if you've got a salesperson that has seen success, they can help be your advocate and share their success stories with the rest of the team. And it's just communicating that to those teams and making sure that they're aware of what's working, and sharing all of those success stories.
And I would quickly give you one idea. The way how we develop the playbooks is, first of all, you need just to go to realize that there are 3 stages of developing playbook. You start always with pilot. You don't need to involve everybody in your organization. The more people you involve, the slower would be the execution, and the worse would be the execution, because different people would have different opinions, different people would do different actions, and then it will never work. So for you, ideally, you need to define one colleague who would be willing to work with you, for example, one SDR, right? And execute the specific playbook for a short period of time, capture these small wins, capture these leading indicators, and then present outcomes to your team and say, okay, we want to extend this pilot in this region, and we want to involve few more SDRs who would be willing to join. You involve a few more colleagues, you start doing this, but now you start documenting all the processes. How we do this, what do we do, right? How do we track it? And that way you create your in-house center of excellence. And when this center of excellence is created, then you can easily scale it to the entire organization. And this is basically how these playbooks are scaled. They're not scaled with the technology, they're scaled with developing center of excellence and developing documentation and operations. This is really essential to keep in mind. Question from Hannah. How would you approach applying tiers or scores on account level?
So how we do it at Demandbase, so the scoring is done, our marketing operations team and sales ops team does that based on our ICP criteria. So we look at things like industry, the technologies that those teams are using, revenue, employee size, and each of those data points has a score. And then that is given an overall account score, which we then send to the sales team to say, these are the ones that have the highest account scores. They're the best fit for us. They should be considered for target account lists. So that's how we apply the scoring methodology. And we have our criteria split out by all of the different ICP criteria that determines whether that account is a good fit for us. And then the tiering is done by, that's selected by our sales team. So they make their, they do the tiering themselves. So we give them 3 account tiers to pick from. So tier 1, they have to pick 3 accounts that's in their top 3. Tier 2 is their top 30, and then the rest of their target accounts, which depending if they're mid-market or an enterprise rep can vary from 100 to up to 200 accounts.
We have slightly different approach, but just to give you an idea, this very aligns. So when it comes to tiers, we usually start with the revenue analysis of our customers. We look at several criteria, LTV, average contract value, and then we define the patterns of this company. So then we can use this criteria to build a list of target accounts using different intent and engagement sources. And when it comes to scoring, right, so that's the next step in account list building. We look holistically at different let's say clusters. The first one is tier. If that account fits tier 1, it gets higher score, right? The score itself doesn't really matter. What matters is your way of prioritizing these scores, right? So like if it belongs to tier 1, it gets higher score. Next, we do the account research, and then we give a higher score to account where we identify that they have a clear need in our product, right? And if there is no clear need, if this is something that we can only identify through one-on-one conversation, right, that this account gets a lower score. Next, what are the factors that could be an evidence that this account might have a need, right? Like, for example, I mentioned this, they raised money, they hired a specific person, whatever, right? So or maybe we have a common connection, good common connection that can make an intro, or ex-employee joined that company, whatever, right? These things that you can track. And next, different engagement and different interactions, right? This is something that we have mentioned multiple times. Sign-ups for the webinars, right? For the field events, visiting high intent pages, etc. So when you holistically measure all of these activities, you'll get a good account scoring. So let's move to the next one. Question from Achilles: how do you define move to pipeline engaged in demo call?
I mean, that is going to differ for each organization. That has to match, the different kind of stage gates that you use at each part of your sales funnel. For us, move to pipeline. So they have to be at a certain stage of the sales funnel. So they would have had, there would be a certain level of engagement there. They're about halfway through or halfway down our buyer journey kind of structure, a journey stage. And then for us, move to pipeline is there has been some engagement with the sales rep. They've had a demo. There's been some level of qualification. So that's how we define it. But that's going to be slightly different for each company.
Yeah, and let me very quickly share a few questions that you have asked. What CRMs are you guys using? Demandbase uses Salesforce. We use HubSpot. So that was the quick and easy one. About the slides, I posted in the chat. So if you want to get the slides, if you want to get the copy, DM me on LinkedIn. I dropped a link to my profile. Or if you have my email, just feel free to email me. I will send you. And the recording would be available on this platform, so you can simply log in with the same link and you'll be able to watch the recording. Next one, how do you track intent for competitor signals? We are using Demandbase to track this. For Fullfunnel, we don't use it, so I mean, can't contribute a lot. And yeah, this one was a good question. When it's a buying signal and when it's not a buying signal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A buying signal would be somebody unsubscribing from a sales email. That is not a buying signal. There may be other companies out there that will tell you that it is. No, it's not. I would say it's when it's the right people from the right accounts are engaging with your content, your webinars, your events.
And I would say, for me, the real buying signal is when account books a discovery call with you, right? But at the same time, we love to track high level, or let's say, engagement with high, or maybe a high level of curiosity in your product, right? When they visit a couple of times, or there are repetitive visits of your pricing page or case studies, that could be an evidence that this account might have, let's say, a need in your product. Next one, what if you are a startup? Is it worth buying intent data from Bombora? What do you think, Leanne?
I mean, it really depends on, the budget that you have, and that there's lots of different intent providers out there. I would just do your due diligence. Obviously, it has to match kind of what you're looking to, what kind of budget you have, but just dig into like the intent data, where it's surfacing from, how they're getting those signals. I'd dig into more like where that intent data is sourced from when you're doing that analysis. And
I would say that the answer to a question is, do you have a playbook? Do you know what to do with this intent data? Are you sure that you'll have a good ROI of that data? Because if the answer is no, or I'm not sure, then it's not worth buying. As simple as that.
And I think the other part of that is like, how can you action on it? So you get intent data, but what's the next step? And how, do your sales team see that? And how does that look? Are you able to see that alongside all the other, engagement kind of touch points as well? So I would say, check the validity of it, and then what other signals are you able to see that alongside, and what action are you able to take using that as well?
We'll cover a few more questions because it's already 90 minutes spent together, and but I just want to make sure that some of the questions that you have asked will definitely cover. So from Catherine, our small marketing team are asked to serve every part of the business. She has lots and lots of service lines and hiring too, so each has target accounts, but we are expected to support them always. And when they request help, how would you recommend we get them to throw marketing on one or two segments rather than supporting everyone in small ways? It's, again, if you do spray and pray, it simply won't work. You can just, again, do the historical cross analysis, right, and present the data. Okay, these are the segments where we really grow, and these were the programs that actually influenced that growth. From our analysis, we believe if we'll focus more here, we can generate more revenue. Obviously, that should be supported by data and numbers, right? But that's the best way, because doing something, right, for 30 minutes a day, I mean, this is not the process, right? It's just doing sporadic actions, trying to going as broad as possible, but this rarely leads to success. And that's why in the beginning we shared this go-to-market fundamentals alignment, where focus, selecting the right segment, selecting the right ICP, and then building a list of target accounts is the best way to proceed.
Yeah, completely agree. So Catherine, I would say review your ICP, have a look at what your existing customers look like in your existing pipeline, and try and build your target account list from there.
Question was from Tatiana: what platform do you recommend to follow the journey? But as far as I know, if you want to have a holistic overview, you can do this in Demandbase, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We are not customers of Demandbase, so we use a few tools to do this. But the key point is that, like, the best answer I can give you, if you don't have a platform that gives you a holistic overview, then you need to have one single source of trust, let's say your CRM, whatever it could be, Salesforce, HubSpot, etc. And you need to make sure that the data that is coming from different sources of intent and engagement, right, is accumulated there and structured in an appropriate way that everybody in your team can leverage. And the last question, just to make sure that we are covered the most essential questions. In our newly initiated operations in Indonesia, we have just one person fully in charge of both sales and marketing. Additionally, we have pre-sales support staff member, though they're currently allocated to the extent of 30% of their time. These two individuals are supported by a small marketing team located at our headquarters, which predominantly handles routine tasks. We also recently implemented CRM software. How can we best leverage our resources to ensure operational alignment and efficiency? So, I mean, I would just literally, if that might be too pragmatic, but I would just highly recommend you to download the slides and go item by item what we have shared today. That would be the best way. Start with historical growth analysis, right? And then do the alignment on go-to-market fundamentals, and then start developing these different playbooks that might impact the revenue metrics and influence the buying journey. That would be probably the best advice to everybody who is in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree.
That's it. Was a pleasure. I mean, took us a little bit longer than we expected, but again, fantastic questions, fantastic engagement. Leanne, thanks a lot for joining me today. And guys, thanks a lot for brilliant questions. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Happy to hear that you enjoyed it and that you got some practical insights. A couple of days, there would be a smart virtual event, which is kind of in alignment to what we had in London. So if you are interested, make sure to sign up. You can find it on Demandbase website. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of the week. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you.